everyone. This is the Youth Summit. I hope some people just joined us for the second half. Well, we have 3 halves, so this is the second half of the program today. The first half was spent understanding what young audiences want, and in this second part, we're going to be looking at young people in the workplace. How can we get more young people in our workplace? But before we go into that, how about we, just reflect on what our key takeaway so far has been from the session today. Our Menti is up and running. For anyone who didn't catch the code this time around, what do you think about the session so far in one word? Let's have all those words come up on the stage. Let's see how we're feeling. We have our first one. Nice. This person was listening. Texas King. Yes. That is interesting. Panic for whom, though? Ooh, dopamine junkies. I'm not sure that's how Gen Z want to be addressed as, but you have a point. Local, not local radio. Anxiety reduced on radio. Motivation. Local is community. I love that. Be relevant. That's great. Radio needs to adapt. That is interesting. We have time for more? Okay. I'm just going to pick up on radio needs to adapt because that is a very, very interesting point. And I think that's why we are all here at Radio Days Europe, because we are finding ways in which we can make radio competitive to other platforms. And one of the ways, like Emily in her presentation, if you caught that, told us was we need to have young people in our workplace creating the kind of content that we want. But there are still challenges facing young people, barriers of entry into the workspace for young people. And particularly, especially now that we know how Gen Z don't exactly relate to toxic work cultures, the process of working, is different for them than for millennials. We think that, it's going to be interesting seeing how we can navigate all of that. And for that, we will be bringing on our next speakers. But before we get there, let's have a poll of what our workspace looks like at the moment. How youth adapted is the current place you work? We will need to go up to Menti as well and just give a yes, no, maybe, in between. How youth adapted is your workspace today? I don't know if you're like the only young person in your organization. I don't know if that counts, but maybe it does. Maybe it's a maybe. Have started, 16, already there, nice. Nice, it explains why we have a record number of people at the Youth Summit this year. More people really want to learn. How youth adapted is your workplace? Well, this looks like a good number, to be fair. I would agree. Would you agree it's a good one? Thank you for that response. And for that, we will just bring on our next speakers. One of them is a young person working in the radio space. He has an interesting story to how he got in, and I think that's something he's very happy to speak about. Cornel and Reece will be coming up on stage. Please put your hands together for them. Reece, I'm just going to get started with Cornel.
Yes.
For this conversation. How are you?
Pretty fine and nervous. I'm really nervous, actually.
It's okay. You can tell I'm nervous as well. Is it your first time on the stage speaking to people in a conference like this? Is it your first time?
It is the first time.
Great. I'm sure you'll be fine. This is just technology being technology again, because I would like to show you what Cornel does on a regular day at work. How are we doing up there? Okay. Before we get to Cornel, let's hear from two young people on what working in radio is like for them.
Hi, I'm Hebe. I am 24 years old and I'm a freelance radio producer in the UK. I love being a freelance producer because I get to work across so many different companies. I've worked for the BBC, for Virgin Radio, for ITV News, and you get to see all these different sides of the industry, and I love getting to grips with the different audiences and the different genres. My favourite thing about being a producer is that I don't really know what my day will consist of. Sometimes it's writing scripts, sometimes it's Zoom calls with guests, and sometimes you're running about doing the craziest things. I've been on red carpets interviewing people. I once had to do a report about learning how to skateboard. I was not very good. My dream job would be working in a team where we can create the coolest and craziest ideas for different audiences every day. That is it. And I'm practically doing that already. This is pretty dream job. So yeah, that's me. Hi from Manchester in the United Kingdom. Have a fantastic time at Radiodays Europe.
Hey, my name's Zane and I'm the studio producer for the Kyle and Jackie O show here in KISS here in Sydney. You'll usually find me standing up the back of videos ready to panel and adjust a fader at a moment's notice. I basically get anything and everything that the show needs to run from an audio perspective. Anything from extra sets of headphones, extra mics, any audio the show needs. Sound effects, footballs, boxing gloves, wigs, rat heads, and other things that I probably shouldn't put on this video without breaking a few rules. I love working in the audio industry because I love everything about it. It makes sense to me. I love conversation. I love music. I love the sounds and timings of everything coming together. And I love something that's authentically live and in the moment. I see my career going anywhere and everywhere from here, whether it's in front of the mic, whether it's behind the scenes, producing, paneling, being a content director. I really don't know. And that's what's really exciting about working in this industry, is that there's so many opportunities. For now, I'm having a lot of fun where I am.
Hi, I'm Kane Slobbe. I'm 21 years old and I'm a radio DJ at QMusic. And I also make radio imaging for the QMusic morning show, Mattie en Marieke, and for the official Dutch chart, the Dutch Top 40, which is a lot, but I really like to do it also. And I've always wanted to work in audio since I've always loved music, I've always loved presenting, and I've always loved pushing buttons. So, you know, this is the full package. People always say, you're still young, since I'm 21 right now. So people always ask what I see my future look like. And I always answer that I take it one day at a time. But if I should have a guess, I would say that I would be honored if I would ever have the privilege to present the Dutch Top 40, which I'm making the radio imaging for right now. And I would like to have a drive time show, perhaps one day in 5 to 10 years, maybe. But for now, I'm really happy with what I'm able to do. So, you know, no rush. All right, so that's me. Thanks for watching. Greetings from Holland and have fun at the Radiodays Europe.
Thank you very much. So much energy in that video. Cornel, you are definitely our youngest speaker today. I don't know your age. I don't know if you want to share it, but that is no small feat. Well done.
I'm 21.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. And you work for Bucharesti FM in Romania, a role that started through a student radio program, which you applied to. You worked your way to the top because you're like a full-time, staff right now at Bucharesti FM. I mean, what was that like for you? How did you apply to this student radio program? What were you doing before that? And how did you know this is something I should try out?
Okay, so at first, and I'm also a student at the Faculty of Journalism in Bucharest. I study advertising at that university because at first I wanted to become an artist. And I had an experience that actually disappointed me because I wanted to be there and be a part of that contest. Then I thought that I should change actually the journey, but my final destination maybe one day will be the same. I applied at that faculty, and then after my first year, I received a message on one of my WhatsApp groups with all the students there, and we heard about this show moderated by Gen Z students. And I thought it was pretty cool. I couldn't imagine that actually one radio station would want some students to do a show. And I chose these images because I wanted to show you the person I worked with. I think it is pretty cool to be there with me on the stage because we were a team, and I think that I wouldn't be here without them. I also wanted to show how the visual identity changed after the more experience we gained. Here, in the first picture, we have the first live show, because till then we recorded all of our shows. And it was amazing. We were very nervous then. Till then, we worked on Google Drive. We had there some Word documents, and we wrote actually what we were going to say in that show. That was the moment that we learned how we can talk on to the microphone and to the people that were listening to us. The second image is made at the last episode of I moderated it with my colleagues. And here, the last one is actually the season 2. Is made at the first episode of the season 2, where I was invited in their show.
It looks like you guys are having a lot of fun here. I mean, I can't see any nerves at all. What is it like at your radio station? What is the working relationship and process like with different generations in your station?
I loved it because I feel like I belong to that place. I feel like I'm understood by the older generation. I feel like I'm being treated as an equal and not as some teenager that wants to do this. I feel like everything is how it's supposed to be in a workplace.
Can you remember one idea that you were really proud of that you shared to your colleagues up? What was that idea that they accepted and they implemented in the radio station? If there is any, if there is not, no problem. But I just wanted you to brag a little bit and tell them how awesome you are, and tell our audience how awesome you are.
Okay, I think at first we started with the visual identity and the social media posts, because I think that this is the way that radio can come closer to the younger generation. I felt that the reels and some stories can make us be in the public eye a lot easier. We had a TikTok page that is still present. Going on. And I don't know. I think that it is very important to work as a team, and each one has an opinion that should be listened to.
That's amazing. In a way, you answered my next question, because I was going to ask you to advise. I know we have a pretty progressive room. Everyone has, incorporate young people in their workplace around here, almost everyone. But if there's still anyone struggling with, integrating young people into their radio station, what is the one advice you have for them?
I think that you should make them feel wanted and heard, and to not treat them as something that you can't understand, because we are also like the other generation, but we lived in another situation. I don't know. We are more familiar with the social media, and I think that is the point where you can take advantage of, because we know how to communicate with other people from our generation.
How would you advise a young person as well who is looking to get into radio, get into the media? I mean, you went for an opportunity that you didn't even think that you should be going for, and look how it turned out for you. So what would you say to someone who looking to start a student radio?
I think you should not overthinking. Just do it. If you feel that this is something that you want to do in your life, you should just apply for it and see how things turns out.
Thank you very much, Cornel. Please put your hands together for Cornel.
Thank you.
That wasn't so bad, was it?
No, it was pretty cool.
Let's hear from Reece. Reece, I'm sure you heard, all of our conversation. Before you give your thoughts or reflect on that, I don't think I've asked you how your radio journey started. I know you're into so many things right now, but everyone always has like a unique story that excites them when they talk about the journey. What was it like for you?
I started out when I think I got to radio. Was I was doing music back then, and my producer, she worked at the radio station. She called me up. She was like, maybe you want to come through and see how it looks. And I was like, I don't know if I can cuss around here, but I was like, fuck no, I'm not going to do it. And then I ended up doing it, and it was kind of the best decision I ever made. So 12 years later, we're here, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. In the age where everyone is trying to be, an influencer, like trying to gain lots of following, try to be a content creator, not like there is anything wrong with that, but that's kind of like the focus now, and it looks like radio is falling behind. I'm just curious, you still get young people texting your Twitter or your Instagram or wherever they'll find you and say, hey, I want to be a radio DJ?
It's pretty simple. You just gotta open the door, I think, and then you gotta be patient, because it's so many people. They ask me like, "How did you do it?" and whatever. And I'm probably not the prime example how you should do it, because in the beginning I didn't want to do it. But it's just like he said. It's a lot of patience. Just I don't know. Try it. I mean, that's all I can say right now. Try it. See if it fits you. Maybe you just not a host, and you just evolve into something else. That's all I can say. I mean, it's such a great experience to just work in that habit, and that's all gravy.
How do you feel, though, knowing that, there's still a lot of young people still very much interested in working in radio? I mean, personally, that makes me feel great, because I used to get I used to be that person who would go into it was Facebook then, of all the presenters that I listened to and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this. Some answered, some didn't. But I imagined, or I thought that culture is kind of like moving away. So how do you feel that you still get those responses from people?
It's funny because I think, I don't know, I never thought of it when I was in that age, and right now it seems like everybody's looking for something, is looking for their little place, and it's an honor to talk to them and just give them, like, I'm not gonna say that I'll give them guidance, but all I know, that's what you get. Just ask.
You already gave an advice to what young people looking to be radio DJs should do. How about the opposite now? What should they not do if you're looking to be a radio DJ?
They just shouldn't be like they shouldn't be a pain in the ass, to be honest. like just, nagging all the time, and they shouldn't walk around like they're all ready to start. I think this got a lot to do with like self-esteem and stuff. And you should not, because you just hosted one show doesn't make you a radio host. It's freaking work. I mean, everybody in here probably know this is extra hours. There's no time for friends, no time for partying most of the time, and you should be totally aware of that.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Cornel, do you want to reflect on my last question? What should anyone looking to be a radio DJ not do?
I think that everything has something to learn, and you should don't think that you know everything. That you should listen to each person that can give an advice to you.
Thank you very much. I have so much questions to ask still, but I'll just throw it to the audience. Is there anyone who has questions for Cornel and Reece? You can put it up on Menti, and trust me, I will just take all of them here. Any questions? Yes? No? We have one over there. We have 2 mics. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susanne. So, Reece, what convinced you when you got the question? I mean, you said that, fuck no, I won't do this. But what was the details that convinced you?
Actually, it was the listeners. It was the first time I had a response like, man, I listen to you like every night when I'm driving home from work. It was that. That was like, okay, I might be up to something. It was just a response from my side. That was it. It was pretty simple. Yeah.
Any other questions? While you think about your question to Reece just made me, reflect on something else. You host a podcast, you DJ, you have a lot of things going on in the media space. Why is radio still special to you?
Like I said, I think I said it like 20 times when I'm up here, but it's for the people. So you can just get back and forth with people and just get so inspired by everybody in no time. I mean, you can do that stuff to social media, but it's different to talk to a person than just texting or whatever, and just sending voice messages.
Thank you very much. Any more questions for Reece and Cornel before we let them go? That's a no? Okay, thank you very much. Please give it up for our gentleman here. Yeah, that was it. Right, so we are moving along. I need to find what slides I should be on. Whose thoughts are this? They're really great thoughts. A team makes the journey better. Of course, I think those are from Reece. Anyway, we'll introduce our next speakers, Iram Ansari and Stine. Kjær, before you come up on stage, I will just give you a quick introduction of what they will be speaking about today. We've had from lots of people, talking about their journeys as well. And while we've seen people like Cornel, people like Reece break through, we still have some people who you normally, will not see in a workspace. And that is what Iram and Stine will be reflecting on in their session at the moment. Please give it up for Iram and Stine as they come on stage. Before I let you get on with it, Stine and Iram, there is just one question I have. I know I ask a lot of questions. How important is it to see someone that looks like you in your workplace? Who wants to go first?
You want to start? I think the answer is pretty clear. It's very important. I mean, it could be crucial to the content we make, to inspire other people to become journalists, to be a part of the democracy. I mean, definitely, it's really important for youngsters or in general people to see that they are represented through content or through people on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then I also see that it's very important to actually make better products, because the more diverse the newsroom is, or the content being created, we can actually call each other upon our biases. So I actually see that we deliver better products to the consumers. And I think that's also what we benefit from it. It's important that you can see yourself and others, but it's also important for the projects that we can call upon each other's biases.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So basically representation and innovation.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Well, it looks like you will have a lot to say. I will let you get on with it.
Thank you. Okay. I'm just waiting for my presentation to come up here. Yeah. Oh, I need to press next. Okay. Yeah. My bad. Okay. All right. As you said, my name is Iram Ansari. I work in the main public broadcaster in Norway. We called NRK, and I work as a head of a talent program called NRK Flere, which is a talent program that is meant to recruit more multicultural competency to the NRK. And mind you that I said multicultural competency, I did not say multicultural people with multicultural background, because there is a difference. I'll get back to that in a minute. So, who am I? My background is as a news journalist. So for more than a decade, I used to work in the news department with the domestic news, foreign news. I guess this picture is from a sunny day. We had a heat wave in Oslo. So at that point, I thought I could take out my cotton shalwar kameez, which is a Pakistani dress. It was so hot that I had to go and be ethnic that day. So basically, I am a journalist, but now I am a manager. If you have a good look at this text here, this is the main strategy, or you can say the main mission for NRK, which is the main public broadcaster. So we have a huge mission. On the top there, you can see the big lines. We're supposed to strengthen the democracy. We're supposed to highlight and enrich the Norwegian and Sami language and culture. We're supposed to bring people together and engage everyone in Norway. That's a lot of people. And then if we want to do all the things on the top, we have to create great experience for everyone to share. We have to have breaking news and be there first, and we need to offer explanations and showing context, and delighting with content that no one else could make. Like, be unique, basically, because we are a small country. I mean, let's face it, in the world. And as we're talking about today, the younger generation, we need to attract each new generation if we want to be a relevant public broadcaster. And in order to do that, the people who work there need to have a world-class, creative, and courageous community. And if we do all of the things at the top, then people will choose us every day. So this is our main strategy. I wanted to show you this because then everything makes sense later. Okay, so as I said, in the people who are recruited through this talent program, they have multicultural competency. And the definition, we have our own definition for it. So multicultural competency in the NRK is if you have language skills. And by that we mean that you know language such as Norwegian and English, of course, but you also, if you know any language which is spoken in one of the largest minority groups that we have in Norway at all time, that's when you have language skills. So basically that's to represent the population, right? Then we talk about perspective, which is basically that you have maybe one parent, two parents, maybe grandparents who have immigrated to Norway, or the fact that maybe you've lived abroad for like 20 years. Basically, that has given you perspectives which makes you look differently at the society that we live in. You have more perspectives, basically, because of that background. And in the end, it's network. So what we mean by that is the fact that you have network with other people who also identified themselves as a minority. So if you have those three, if you have language skills, if you have the perspectives, you have network, you have multicultural competency, and you can apply for the talent program, basically. So what is the talent program, NRK Flere? It's basically a talent program where it's sort of like going back to school, at least for 5 months, because basically you're getting training for 5 months on how to become a journalist. You're getting to learn basic storytelling, press ethics, how to make content on radio, TV, online. Yeah, I can show you some pictures here. So here are some of the guys, they're learning radio, they're doing, yeah, you get it. Basically for 5 months we train people who have no media background whatsoever. Some people do, but not so many. And we have had like teachers, people coming who used to work in the police, people with master degrees, bachelor degrees applying for this program. And for 5 months, they're back to school. They're learning basic journalism and news specifically. And after those 5 months, they're supposed to go and work in a department in the NRK where they've applied for. So if they're working in the news department or they're working in the documentary department, but then they're working as any other journalist. Of course, they're new in this game or in this media field, but they are supposed to work like anyone else. And I get this question a lot, so I'm just going to mention it right now. The first 5 months, they do get pay for the entire 10 months of time. The first 5 months, they are getting a trainee sort of salary, so it's not that, it's like 40% of a normal salary, but on the second term, like on the last term where they are supposed to go out and work in the departments, they're getting full salary. So that's also something to mention. Where do we succeed? So basically, as I mentioned, we do have a lot of people applying for this program. Last year, we had a new record of 290 people. That's almost 300 people. And we have 5 slots. So we have 5 trainees. Sometimes we have 6, and we have had 7. But every year, annually, we recruit 5 to 7 people. So as you can see, you can call it that we succeed. I also call it that we're not succeeding. But basically, there are so many people out there who wants to work in our field or in this media. But anyways, and where else do we succeed? Yeah. Statistics show that 50% of the people who have completed this talent program, they're still working in the NRK today. So, and 97 people have completed the talent program, and 50% of them are working today in the NRK, and 77% are working in the media. So if they're not working in the NRK, they're out there somewhere with our competitors or in the media. So that's a good thing. That's also something we look at as a great thing to contribute to this, to our colleagues in other companies. Okay, what's our challenges? I have to admit, it was really hard to find some things to put on this slide. But we do have, like any other, we do have some challenges. I mean, as I said, we are only recruiting 5 to 7 people annually, right? So as you can see, if we have almost having 300 people wanting to apply and really wanting to learn, so we're not managing. I mean, there should be maybe more people recruiting every year. I mean, we should do more maybe. Then another thing, like, let's face it, getting a job or a permanent job in the media is not as easy as it. I don't know how it is in your country, but it's definitely not that easy in Norway as well. So one of the challenges is definitely that, I mean, there are not enough jobs for people. But we do hire many of them ourselves. But in general, like, you know, the media industry could be unpredictable. Like, we're having so many things happening. We're always trying to make new content in new ways. We're having new strategies. So for those people who probably have had a master's degree or a bachelor's degree and know that they are coming from other professions, and then they have invested their year in this talent program, and if they don't get a job, you know, later on, then maybe we lose them. I mean, that's also a challenge. I mean, so I think, like, if there were more jobs in the media industry, that would be great. So but that's a part of reality that there isn't sometimes. The third challenge I would mention is the fact that, I mean, when I get so many people applying for this program, due to GDPR, I'm not allowed to show that list to other people, other media companies, or, you know, like, we are not able to, basically, if they are not recruited through our talent program, there is, I think we could improve the fact that to get them people to try to sort of apply for other jobs in our company, or just to get them in, you know, it's not that easy. And recently I found out that, I mean, I am the main person who's always trying to keep in touch with all of those 97 people who were recruited through this program. I think that's also smart, but that's also kind of our weakest link. Like, we need to have some strategy on how to keep in touch with our talents, you know, to network with them. I forgot to mention one thing, is that after they're done with the talent program and they've completed it, for 3 years they can apply jobs in the NRK, and then when they do apply jobs, they will be sort of looked as an internal employer when they are. So they are sort of getting some benefits, like about the fact that they have gone this they have completed this talent program, and for 3 years they have this status that if they apply to a job which they are qualified for in our company, they should get an interview, and if they are qualified, then, I mean, we should definitely try to get them in for that job. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there, because yeah, you can have questions later. I probably forgot to mention so many things. Always happens. Thank you for now.
Yeah?
Yeah. All set.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about this. It's pronounced Exor, and it is the project for what I would call BIPOCs in the area where we live. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, people of color. And the small circle up there, TV2 ØJ, TV2 Østjylland, TV2 Østjylland is a regional media house, a public service funded media house in Denmark. And we are actually challenging or facing the same challenge as every other media in Denmark, that we are very much missing diversity, both in staff, and we are very much missing diversity in sources. So we really wanted to do something about this. So we created EXA. It's been here for 3 years now in different forms, but EXA is the form it has now. And it is an editorial lab. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about that later. I'm here, and I'm going to talk to you about this because I'm the head of innovation and development at TV2 Østjylland. This is something we will try to develop so it can benefit the whole industry, the whole media industry. This is something where we don't want to put people within the boxes we already have. We want to try to create something new, and we actually want to challenge the norms on how we create content and how we actually create the work environment. That's why I'm here. So I'm having the strategic vision and then hire the people who actually do the content. Yes. We call EXA an editorial lab more than we call it a talent program, actually mostly because of the mindset. Because in EXA you are basically allowed to do a lot of things differently. The only thing you have to have in mind all the time is our press ethics, of course. But the format that we produce content in, the platform, the people we use, all of that can change. The way we tell the stories, all of that can change. So we develop a lot of ideas and forms, and the way we actually then produce them as well. And then we scout for a lot of talents. I think the number was in 2022, there was one BIPOC coming into the journalist educations in Denmark. That is so low. And it's really, really awful of actually facing a future where we cannot just hire if we keep only wanting to hire journalists. So for EXA, it's about actually scouting for people who don't have journalism on their resumes, but have a voice they want to use or have a creative spirit to them. So we use a lot of time talent scouting in every other industries than journalism. Yeah. We know that we have to create representation on the screen before we can populate the newsrooms. Because as it is right now, a lot of the content being created, I mean, of course you don't want to create something that you cannot see yourself in. So we really have to be in this for the long run. And we've decided to be in this for the long run. This is not a thing that we can fix of actually counting numbers of BIPOC sources or counting numbers within the editorial staff and so forth. This is actually something we have to do where we create trust, build relationships, and actually develop a whole new way of telling stories. So, yeah, I have these videos, it's in Danish, but it's just to show you. Yeah. We are creating mostly high format as it is right now, and we are creating content that is both in formats that the young people are finding or coming up with themselves, but it's also told by themselves. So our journalists are not hosts, our sources are hostess of their own voices. So one of the things, or some of the things that we actually do to succeed right now is that we are very aware of the relevance in this. We're really aware that we are working with a minority group of BIPOCs, but the group of BIPOCs in our areas is diverse as a normal target group of young people. So when we do this content, it's not like saying there are only these subjects that's relevant, because it's very diverse compared to the multi-ethnical background you have, and also what you have of interests. So we have to be very aware of that, when we actually do the idea development. And then we spend a lot of time actually building trust and talking to the sources. I think 80% of what we do is behind the cameras and is actually behind of the content actually being created. And we spend a lot of time actually talking about this to the rest of the media house because we produce a lot less amount of products than the rest of the media house because we spend so much time of actually building relationship and building trust. 3 years ago, it was almost impossible for us to get sources to tell their stories. But now they're actually coming with their stories. We don't even have to go out and look for them. We have too many stories to tell for the amount of resources that we have. And this is because we spend so much time in trust. Then we use the creativity just because it's necessary and fun. We also have the thing about XOF talking about unique access. If we find sources, BIPOC sources who have stories that the rest of the newsroom or the rest of the media house can actually tell, let them please tell it. But if it demands our unique access and our unique trust, we'll tell the story. And then we have a lot of things about nuances and perspectives. The first video you saw was about being circumcised. It's a topic that you don't really talk about in Danish media because not a lot of ethical Danish boys are circumcised, but a lot of BIPOCs are circumcised. But it's also very important when we have that talk that we are talking about people who would actually do it with their kids when they have kids one day and who won't, and people who haven't experienced and people who have experienced. I mean, even though we talk about something that more men in ethnic Danish men have in common, we also have to put nuances into that. Yeah. And then there's also a whole lot of things that's actually quite difficult for us. Because it's quite difficult for the people who I have hired, because they're BIPOCs themselves, to actually being a journalist and also an ambassador for this challenge. Sometimes they use themselves too much, and they bring their life and their experiences and their mindsets to work, and it's much more than actually just being a journalist in a regular newsroom. This is a huge challenge, and it is also a huge leadership challenge than I face. Then we also struggle a bit with the POV, I mean the point of view, because sometimes this can trigger some reaction within the rest of the media house, because usually stories have two sides. And in EXA, we actually want to tell sometimes only one side of the story. And then we have the anonymity. Some of these stories that we want to tell actually demand anonymity. We used a lot of AI to actually help us here. Unique access, again, it was a success. We have it, but it's also a challenge to keep gaining it. And then we have one of the big things is that many minorities, either if it's sexual, religious, ethnical, and so forth, are experiencing the parallel realities. You are a hybrid version of yourself. Sometimes when you are at home with your parents, one reality is there. When you're among friends or in school, another reality is there. Those realities can coexist and are equally important. But when you face that scenario with two parallel important realities and put that into a journalistic context where there is often just one truth and one right, either you drink or you don't, it can be actually quite difficult to tell these stories. So how do we respect that? And how do we tell the stories? We don't necessarily know, but we are very much aware that it's not because one thing is right and one is not. They coexist. We don't know how to tell that yet. Yeah. So that was my thought on actually doing talent program in a quite different way than just putting people in the newsroom, training them to be journalists. We want to do that as well. But this is where we take the people and make them be themselves.
Thank you very much, Stine. Thank you so much. That was a brilliant session. Last year, when I was here, like I said at the beginning, in the audience. I really found your session, Iram. I found it so great. I had so many questions. Now my head doesn't have as much questions because I'm juggling all the stage things. But yeah, that's how, it's just a testament to, how important the presentations you've given today here is. Thank you again for that. Before we go to the audience to take any questions they might have, I wonder if both of you are able to reflect on, what you saw in her presentation that you could connect with, or you feel like, yeah, maybe we could try that too.
One thing that you said about the challenges about them being being the storyteller and at the same time being the source. I mean, even though my talents are not facing that directly, but at the same time, they're also living in two realities. Sometimes they have perspectives which they bring into their stories or into other journalistic projects they're doing. So I could sort of relate to that, even though they are journalists. So sometimes for them it needs to, and they are trained in press ethics. But I could sort of relate to that. And I thought it was so interesting to see, it's kind of challenging the way to tell stories in the first place. So that I thought that was really interesting and really innovative in a way.
I agree. How about you, Stine? Anything from
Iram's presentation? I wish I had your budget. I mean, literally, because I think what you do is really important. And I think what you do at NRK is what we see is lacking in our big media houses in Denmark, because they should use the resources of actually creating talent programs like this. At TV2 Østjylland, a regional media house, we probably couldn't do it in the amount you do it right here, and that's why we have EXA. But this is what we need to do to actually create the challenge, or create the change we want to see.
Yeah.
And I also want to, because I think one very different things about what we do. I mean, you are taking young people in and teaching them how to be a journalist, a host, and all of that. Every time we get young people in, they want to try and be a host of what they've seen in television, of what they've seen in radio. And the first thing I do is to sit them down and say, no, don't. Speak as yourself, be yourself, and try and undo all of the things you've actually just learned, because we're going to do something else.
That's interesting.
So I think that's also a big of a difference.
Speaking of those talents you just mentioned, Stine, it was something in your presentation that I could really relate with. That was, you said you used to go outside of the traditional media or journalistic degrees and background to search for talents. And personally, when I have young people walk up to me, the first question they ask is, do I need to have a degree? Do I need to have worked in a certain place? How important is it to go into those areas that you normally will not find, or you normally will think that you wouldn't get talents
it's really important. I think I am probably one of the only bosses at work that actually don't care about resumes. I really don't. I really don't care about what degree you have, where you're from, what you've done, as long as you want to use your voice and you want to try and do something new with it, and you can then do it within the press ethics.
But how do you know that they have a unique voice? Is it because of their...
It's because of how we interact and how they approach me and what I've seen. I mean, usually when we interact with talent, it's because there's something we spot.
What are you looking for? Like, what exactly are you looking for? Sorry,
usually we're looking for people who are not trying to fit in.
Right. Interesting.
I just have another reflection on that. Sorry, guys. When you say young people you don't look at the resumes anymore, do you then maybe look at what they do on social media, look at their tone of voice on those kind of platforms?
Yeah, I do.
Are those some of the things you do as well?
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yes, please.
But how can you be so sure that they are following the ethical rules, or are you just guiding them? I mean, that's like a huge thing.
But I mean, we have an editor-in-chief making sure of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a very good back and forth. I really enjoyed that myself. It looks like if you leave it to us, we'll just continue for another 15 minutes. But your questions, it's time to have your questions. And yes, we already have someone with their hands up. Mike's, Kim.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for all this. Very interesting. My name is Susanne. First to Iram. How do you pick the lucky 5 from the 230 people?
It's really hard.
And I got another thing as well.
But then, of course, it's easy. As I mentioned, the definition of multicultural competency. So first, I look for that, and the language, perspective, and then a network. And then later on, of course, there's this huge recruiting process. I mean, I have to find a good match for each department in the NRK where they're supposed to work. So that really depends on where they're gonna be working. Are they gonna be working with in the news department? Are they gonna work in the cultural news? Or maybe they're gonna just work with...
Do they have that idea themselves to start with, where they want to be?
Some of them do, but at the same time, I do see that they don't know that much. I mean, the Norwegian broadcasting is huge. I mean, we make so much content every day. So they might know what they want, but then at the same time, they might sometimes, like in the previous years, we used to, in the ad, you know, then we added all the different departments where they can choose, like, where do you want to work this year? And before that, all of the leaders from that department have told me that I really need one NRK Flere this year, and they have to like tell me why. They have to send an application, and so I know sort of what the like what my colleagues want, and then they also tell me which department they want to work in. This year, because we're actually 20th of May is a new deadline, so I'm in the middle of recruiting right now. We're trying to have more like people deciding to what type of content they want to make. You know, what like genre, like news or sports or cultural news, or so it's going to be a new one for us as well. Sometimes they do know what they want, and sometimes I sort of guide them after. Some people, when I'm really interested because I've seen something, maybe because of their multicultural competency, like if they have, let's say if they are from Poland, like if they have Polish background, we are not representing them well enough, and that's a huge group of, like a minority group in Norway. So then I'm like more interested, and so I'm trying to pay attention. So I do a lot of follow-up sort of in the process as well, and it's very time-consuming because we have so many people applying. So from March till June, I'm really like doing this.
Can I ask, are you also interviewing them, or are they just a written application?
I'm interviewing them, but I'm also having colleagues from those other departments as well joining me for the interviews, because I think they are the one best to decide as well who they think would be the perfect match, and at the same time also making them accountable for the ones that they pick, you know, and like so that I'm not only delivering them someone that I thought was a talent, they need to also acknowledge and want them.
Sorry, I haven't mic. I just want to ask you something more. It's not a question, it's more like a thought, because, and I've been discussing this with colleagues several years. I mean, it doesn't start, it's not the media community that is the thing that where it starts. It's the educational. It's an educational problem, I think, sometimes, because there's lack of youth with a diverse background taking an exam. And it starts there, because they don't know about the things that you can study, and they don't want to study it. And we're lucky that we have you and some organizations working with it. But I think it starts in the school, in the education.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the entire media industry need to go on like a tour. Like we need to be like those rock stars going on a tour together and showing what you can do. I mean, there's so many opportunities. I don't think people know it, and that when we don't have content where they can see being represented or which is relevant for them, then how would they know that this is where they want to be? Like, imagine being a public broadcaster. Okay, we're the main. There's a lot of we make content, but we're also an IT company. Like, I mean, come on, there's so many things people wouldn't. And there's so many people with diverse background who are studying IT, but they would never think of, oh, let's try to apply for a job in the NRK. I mean, they would go for the other, you know. So I think there's also so many things we could do. But definitely, we have the same problem in Norway. I mean, there's so many. In general, there are not that many people picking journalism as something to study, and definitely not the ones with the multicultural background, I will say now. So that is also a problem. So I think we need to just collaborate as well within institutions, but at the same time, we need to go on a huge tour, and we need to sell what we do every day.
That is so innovative.
Can I add a comment to that? Because I actually find it quite interesting, because we also discussed that a lot in Denmark with the journalism schools. And they talk a lot about, how do we recruit and how do we convince that journalism is a good thing? Yeah. But I mean, it's also something about looking in, because most of the young people that we collaborate with for the economic and socially challenged areas, right? They aren't from homes reading articles and newspapers. Why would you go to school then learning how to do that, right? So, I mean, as well, we need to recruit, but we also need to challenge the way that we teach journalism and storytelling. Yeah.
That's a very nice way to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much, Iram and Stine. Please put your hands together for them. Okay, if you have any questions for Iram and Stine that we couldn't take, please put it up here in Menti, because we'll be, speaking to all the speakers at the end and take as much questions as possible. So we have earned ourselves a break right now. We'll be back at 3:15, and you don't want to miss this session. I would say this is probably the most important one. Quote me on that. Thank you, guys. See you in a bit.